This is the High-Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour and the FFPC. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on Twitter at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2022. That's RVRADIO2022. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel. Now, without further ado, here's the latest edition of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Welcome in and happy Tuesday night. Happy no bye weeks this week here on the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. I am Eric Balkman from the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network's High-Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Welcome in. Follow me on the X at Eric Balkman. Connect with me there. You can also follow the FFPC there at FFPC. Speaking of the FFPC, want to remind you that just because we are in the midst of late October, it doesn't mean you cannot enter more contests with the FFPC. And one of those contests is the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com. And then when you're there, just click on that FFPC Weekly Challenge graphic, and then you can enter. There is no draft. You don't have to wait for 11 other people or whatever. There's no salary cap. You don't have to worry about balancing your budget at all. You just pick whatever players you want. You got to choose 10 of them if you're going to play without kickers and defenses, 12 of them if you're going to play with kickers and defenses by Sunday's kickoff, and then you just enjoy the ride the rest of the weekend. Now, the slant here is you can only pick one player per team, so you can't make stacks. No Kelsey Mahomes teams, no Kirk Cousins, Jordan Addison teams, nothing like that. So you got to make sure that you have one player per team, just like our world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Remember, you can enter for as little as $35. You can play for as much as $2,500. There's 10 teams, 10-team games, 30-team games, and 100-team games as well. Remember to like, and that's, by the way, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, share it to people you don't know. Maybe not. Actually, don't do that, because then that gets into the whole spamming territory. Make sure you know the person that you're sharing it with, and then get notified by clicking on that notification bell so you know anytime we go live, like Tuesday nights during the season, like Thursday nights during the season, like Friday nights during the season. That is what we're doing here on the FFPC social channels via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Want to welcome in my guest tonight. Welcome back to the show, actually. He is a winner of 17 FFPC high-stakes leagues, winning 5 figures at least, maybe even 6 figures. I haven't totaled it all up. He is in the chase for a $1 million grand prize, both in the FFPC Main Event and the FantasyPros Championship. Has a team right now in the top 70 in the FantasyPros Championship. When you consider how many thousands of teams are in there, that's exciting. So we're going to bring him in right now. You already follow him on the X machine. Please welcome back onto the show, Ray Chung. Ray, welcome in, man. Hold on. This is why I should have popped on. I can't hear you right now. No audio. Okay. Try it again. Nope. I think I got you now, Ray.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect. You're the man. Welcome in, dude. How's everything going?
Really good. Yeah. I'm in my apartment in New York. Just moved here from Hong Kong last year. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment.
And I think that one of the things that helps you keep your mind off moving and everything new is playing in all these fantasy leagues, of which you're in a ton this year. And it seems like you're doing pretty good in most of them. Obviously, I just mentioned it, team in the top 70 in the FantasyPros Championship as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Just trying to, like you said, just trying to pass the time a little bit. I wasn't able to make it out in Vegas this year to see you guys, or in Kentucky, but I'd like to go back next year.
Yeah, I'll be there. It's always a blast for sure. Coming up on tonight's show, we are going to talk a lot about some rookie receivers. We're going to get into Michael Mayer as well in his role in redraft, and then Ray's going to tell us who he's targeting on the waiver wire this week, as well as who he's thinking about benching and starting in his Week 8 lineup. So let's get into it right away, Ray, and talk with you about kind of what we saw last night in Minnesota. You had a case where Alexander Mattison started the game, got a lot of action in the first quarter, was stuffed on 2 goal line carries, And then over the course of the game, we saw a lot of Cam Akers. We even saw some Ty Chandler, to the point where I was like, I got to check to see if Madison's hurt here, because I didn't see him at all. And then he was in late in the game. But when you consider what Minnesota did in making that trade for Cam Akers to bring him aboard, he's been there now a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. I can't remember exactly. But I wonder if you're seeing potentially a change from Alexander Madison as the feature back for the first part of the season. Maybe we're going to see Cam Akers as the feature back for the latter part of the season. How are you reading this Vikings running back situation, man? The
way I see it is you can't have anything to be too excited about. I don't think the Vikings know themselves either. So, it was like kind of a hot hand situation, like you said. Sometimes it's going to be Madison to start the game, probably, right? And then they're going to have Akers in there. And Chandler can catch the ball. Like, I think they had a trick play, right? Was it like Osborne? Someone got called on a offensive pass interference.
Addison, I think it was Addison that threw across the field to Osborne. And right. I saw the pass interference. I thought you actually had to be near the ball for it to be pass interference. This dude was like 15 yards downfield. And you're right. I think it was Osborne that was blocking on the play. Like way downfield. It didn't make any sense that they called it. But to your point, Ty Chandler is a talented guy.
Sure. And I think, you were talking about the waiver wire before. I wouldn't necessarily, be that excited about Chandler, but he's definitely someone you want to watch. Like preseason, remember we were drafting all those teams. Whether you're doing mock drafts or like, a lot of people are max entering underdog or, $35, $125 max entry, right? We don't know. So my theory was, okay, I'm not that excited about Madison. I don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be back, right? And then, he was cut. Then we're just taking shots. Was it Dwayne McBride? It was apparently not. But is it going to be Ty Chandler? By the end of the year, he might still get a shot. So right now, you kind of have that. I know we're already like 7-8 weeks in, but you still want to take shots. And he's not going to be that expensive on the waiver wire, like we were saying, right?
Right.
So, like I said, it's going to be a hot hand situation until they figure it out.
So would you advise, I know we don't have any buys this week, Ray, but when you consider looking forward here, if you can handle it, is Ty Chandler a guy that you want to keep on your roster, even though technically he's third on the depth chart right now?
Not necessarily, but if you have some room on the end of your bench, and I know we're trying to get ready for, the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Some of us need to win every game from here on out just to have a chance, right? We're looking at our portfolios. Not every team is going to be 7-0. Not every team is going to be 6-1. You're not going to be top in the standings. So you're just trying to eke out every win. But on those teams where, you're a little bit better prepared, you don't have guys that are injured. And, you brought it up on the show sheet. You sent me the show sheet earlier. You want to talk about Quentin Johnson. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have Quentin Johnson right now, or would you rather have someone like Ty Chandler or like a Pierre Strong, right? Like we see Pierre Strong, he might get his shot now.
I think, and that's and we'll get into this a little bit when we bring up Quentin Johnson, because I think you hit on something that I want to make sure we touch on. Before we get there, though, my Green Bay Packers, Ray, holy God. Everybody always says, oh, you're a Packers fan, Balky, you've been spoiled for 30 plus years of great quarterbacking. And I knew it was going to be rough this year. I did not think it would be as rough as it was against Las Vegas and Denver, as far as everybody on Green Bay's offense, just putting up a clunker for fantasy purposes. And when you consider that the Packers played two of the softest defenses that they will play for the remainder of the season in weeks 6 and 8, they had the bye week in their week 7. They had a bye week to prepare for Denver, and they still couldn't put up any points in the first half. When you consider all that, is there anybody on the Packers worth starting in fantasy right now? I'm still going to roster guys like Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, obviously, Luke Musgrave, obviously. But as far as starting them right now, Ray, I don't see any upside here. Do you?
I think Aaron Jones, he's going in the, round 2, round 3, right? You're probably in a position where you need to start him. And I think they're going to ramp him up because he was, battling that injury. Was an ankle before, and he's probably still going through it, right? So,
it was a hamstring. He pulled his hammy week 1, and the Packers staff has been really, really cautious with him.
Sure, and the Packers traditionally have been pretty cautious with their players, right? So, okay, you have A.J. Dillon in there. You had Patrick Taylor in there for a little bit. They're not doing anything, right? He's getting like 4 yards of carry. He's getting what's there. Aaron Jones, you're going to start him.
And that's the question here, because as far as it goes, like, I'm wondering at this point, Ray, if we're going to see Aaron Jones getting a full complement, a full workload, like we've been accustomed for him to be getting for fantasy. I'm wondering if he even gets that the rest of the way. They are so ticky-tacky and managing this workload. And quite frankly, even when he was in there, the offensive line has been so terrible for Green Bay. They couldn't make anything happen for Jones. Dillon, I thought was all right against. In fact, I thought he was good against the Raiders and Broncos. So the offensive line is coming together. But again, when you consider the soft opponents that they faced, I don't know if it gets much better. Green Bay gets Minnesota this week at Lambeau Field. Minnesota coming off the short week. I mean, yeah, you're right. I probably will start Aaron Jones, but my God, I have no faith in him whatsoever.
Not only him, but you're definitely going to start Christian Watson.
Really? You think so too?
He had his huge game against the Vikings last year, right? He had that long touchdown.
Yeah.
Could have had 2 touchdowns, went over 150 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to sit someone like that. Romeo Doubs, he could have had 2 touchdowns versus Denver. And Jaden Reed, he caught that ricocheted ball, right? So for the touchdown.
Yeah. Total dumb luck.
Right. So at least he's aware. At least he's out there. But yeah, like you said, you're not going to be excited about Dillon. I think he gets a smaller workload this week. And Musgrave, he has no touchdowns on the year. Whenever you're streaming a tight end, he went as high as maybe the 9th round. So, okay, you're probably going to take 3 tight ends there. I hope you have a better option this week. And we'll talk about, who you can pick up later. I think there are some options on the waiver wire that you might want to consider this week to start over Musgrave.
I think the other thing too is Watson's injury status. Like, we have to be watching that, Ray. There, to me, given again how cautious Green Bay is, I think, and this is, I don't know if this is hot takey or not. My guess is Watson does not play this week because of that knee injury he sustained right at the end of the game. In which case, then, okay, and Musgrave is another guy too. Musgrave, I don't want to turn this into a Packers thing, but Musgrave is a guy who's already battled a lot of injuries this year. Came back from a concussion a few weeks back, and then he gets absolutely annihilated by Kareem Jackson in that game. Kareem Jackson, who, by the way, got a 4-game suspension for that hit. He just appealed it and got down to 2 games. But Musgrave, I'm thinking, okay, this is another concussion for him. He left Denver in a walking boot. Oh my God. So I don't know if he's going to be playable. I think that's you hit on all the upside portion of it. The question is, are they going to be able to do it against Minnesota? I have misgivings. I'm glad you're positive about them. I am not positive about them right now. I'll tell you who else.
You need someone to give you a little confidence. I think, did you watch the locker room stuff and the post-game interviews and all that?
No. I mean, I've seen some of it with LaFleur.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, whenever you get your ass kicked, right? You're going to try to make some changes. They're going to try to change the game plan a little bit, make a statement. And I think they're going to try to make a statement against Minnesota, division rival.
Right. But and Minnesota, I mean, I thought they looked great last night. I thought they were fantastic. And I mean, I don't want to say it's going to turn into a bluff. Maybe that's good, because if the Packers get down early, Jordan Love and the Packers offense seem to come alive in the second half, and maybe they can cobble out some fantasy worthiness there. I don't know. Let's move on and talk about the Browns running back situation. We wanted the guy behind Nick Chubb. It ended up being Jerome Ford. Now Jerome Ford, I think it was Adam Schefter, is reporting that he's probably going to be missing a week or 2. And now we got to figure out who we're starting with for a Browns running back. The Cleveland Browns this week are playing, who are they playing? At Seattle. Now that's a game that it could be a slobber knocker, could be a knockdown, drag out fight. So we probably want the running back in that situation. Could probably be a top 20 guy this week. Kareem Hunt or Pierre Strong, which one are you going with this week?
Well, during the draft season, I had so much Pierre Strong, right? And back then he was with the Patriots. And in that situation, you're always, I know you've been talking about it so many years. Just take the cheapest guy on the Patriots backfield.
Right.
And it's not going to be Stevenson. He's been a silent killer, as Corain would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You take him in the 3rd round, 4th round. Ezekiel Elliott, getting the red zone work. But back to the Browns situation. They traded for this guy preseason. They didn't give up much. But Kareem Hunt, okay, if we look at that last play versus the Colts, he called for the ball, he got the ball, and he was going to get in there no matter what. Like, if you're a Browns fan, you're so psyched up about that.
Right.
If you're Kareem Hunt, there's just some guys that have that dog in them, and I think he does. I'm not going to start Pierre Strong over Kareem Hunt. But I actually had a team where I have both guys. I don't remember what I did exactly, but I think Hunt is the guy. He might even be the guy over Ford when he comes back.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, okay, let's talk about this. If let's say you don't have Kareem Hunt, let's say he's taken or whatever, is Pierre Strong flexible? Like, is he startable as a flex in the FFPC, even if you believe Hunt is the guy? Is that a path that you would say would be all right or semi-advantageous, or would you just stay away completely?
I wouldn't be too excited about it, honestly. There's lots of those 0 RB teams. That's how we draft, right? Pierre Strong's out there in probably 90% of leagues at least. You want to get 8 points from someone as a desperation play, you might get that, because I think they're going to go run heavy versus Seattle. That rookie, Witherspoon, right? He's playing lights out right now. And it's just, you don't know if it's going to be PJ Walker. You don't know if it's going to be Watson, but whatever. They're not throwing it that well. They're going to try to run the ball, control the clock. They have a good defense. That's how they're going to play.
I think, we'll follow it throughout the week, but I think you're making a good point here. And I happen to agree with you on Hunt. Like, I think that there's going to be certain people in the FFPC this week that go, because Kareem Hunt's owned in most every league, but Pierre Strong is still out there in some leagues. And I think there's going to be people going too heavy into Pierre Strong this week, and they might be disappointed with the outcome in Seattle on Sunday.
We see this every week, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Mercado before, and then we get Royce Freeman.
Zach Evans was another one. I mean, like, it happens. Now, people are going to shoot their shot, and maybe you got a bunch. Maybe you have like 800 some bidding dollars left. Well, then you got to take your shot here and start planting a flag on some of these guys. So I think there's something to be said for that as well. Let's talk. I want to get into some of the players that you have on a lot of your teams. Okay. Now, Kendra Miller is I know you have him in a bunch of leagues. Jamal Williams came back from IR. I don't believe Miller touched the ball on Sunday. It was the Kamara and Williams show. We talked about Ty Chandler earlier in the show about trying to keep a player like that, who is a 3rd string running back on your team, on your roster. We can't always do it, right? But what about Kendra Miller? Is this a player that you would be more likely to try to find a way to keep him as that 19th player, that 20th player? Because if something were to happen to Kamara or Williams, who are not young by NFL running back standards, then all of a sudden Kendra Miller has a role on the team.
Yeah, the thing is with Miller is he had his shot already. We saw whenever we draft these rookies, we're always thinking, what if one guy goes out for the season, right? What if, Mike Williams is out? We get Quentin Johnston. We expect something from them. Mm-hmm. Kendra Miller, he had his shot when Kamara was suspended, when Jamal Williams was hurt. He didn't do much, right? I think they had some guy off the street, Tony Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's say, the Saints, they've lost a few in a row. They have a late bye. They continue losing. Do they throw Kendra Miller out there again? They might. They want to see what's going on, right? They drafted this rookie pretty high. I believe he was a 3rd round draft pick.
Yeah, it sounds right.
And they want to know what they have in him, because they might invest another high pick in a running back next year. The thing with Kamara, he's getting the most high value touches out of any running back in the league. So he's getting all these dump offs, right? And he's not doing a lot with them, but he's still getting 15 receptions.
Target.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
every week.
That's what's crazy to me is I was joking around about who was I talking to about this? It might have been CH Herms from Draft Sharks, and we were talking about this on because the Saints played Thursday night, and we were doing a show during that game, and I was joking around. I'm like, well, Kamara could have another good game tonight, but he's not catching 13 balls. Well, he didn't. He caught 12. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy what he's doing right now. And we're loving it for fantasy owners. It's not the greatest representation of, of real life football because the stuff that he is doing is great for fantasy, but not that great for real life. But I think you make a good point here too. Maybe Kendra Miller got his shot for 2023 and we'll see him compete again in 2024. If, the status quo remains with Kamara and Williams ahead of him on the depth chart, which certainly could happen as well. We had a question from the YouTube. I'm not going to try to pronounce this name. Maybe I could try. Srikanth Reddy Nanga, I'm guessing. I could be wrong. Sorry if I butchered it. DeMarcado, Devin Singletary, Pierre Strong. Does anyone stand out to you in this group? I'm going to tell you right now that the first two guys kind of do, Ray. I think Singletary is slept on because the Texans were on bye this past week, but he was heavily involved in that game plan the week before. And Amari DeMarcado, I don't know what happened last week, but the week before that and this week, he looked pretty good in Arizona. We don't know exactly what the status is with Connor as well. I like the first two guys better than the third guy. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Does anyone stand out? I'm trying to think what Reddy Nanga means by that. Does he mean
like maybe as just like a last guy on your bench? Like if he's just looking to pick up, like utilize your last spot on one of these three. Let's frame it that way. If you have only one spot on your roster, which one of these three guys would you pick up?
Right. Yeah. In terms of priority, I think I would go with Singletary, DeMarcado, and then Strong. Because I don't know what it is, but the thing with Houston is that they have such a strong passing game, right? That they don't need to rely on the run. But we know that Dameon Pierce is not who we thought he was. We thought he might be dominating in touches. He's not. He's basically like a 1A, 1B, and Singletary might actually be the 1A there now, right? Yeah. Changing of the guard, like you said. So, and this might last the entire season. DeMarcado, we might have Connor coming back in 2 games, right?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, Strong. We have Ford coming back in a week or 2, probably. It could be longer. But if you're just prioritizing it, I would definitely go. Yeah, he's just stashing. So I would definitely go Singletary, DeMarcado, and then Strong.
Yeah, I think that's how I would rank them as well. Again, you want to keep as many of these injury away type running backs on your roster. So that's actually a really smart idea too, because you may only get 1 or 2 weeks use out of these guys, maybe none, but optimally, maybe you get, a week or 2 where these guys are touching the ball 15 to 20 times and all of a sudden they become flexible in the FFPC or whatever fantasy league you are playing in. Rookie receivers, let's get into it, Ray. No DK Metcalf for the Seahawks this past week against the Cardinals, which means Jackson Smith and Jigba got a lot more action, ran more routes, got more snaps. Did we get a taste of what's to come for him in the second half of the season? Or do you view Smith and Jigba as a guy that you can only feel good about starting if Metcalf or Lockett were to miss a game?
I was just I told you I was going for a run before this, right? I'm doing my marathon training. So I come back and I get an email from Ben Gretsch. So he has one of the best newsletters out there. It's so concise. And he says, he's breaking it down. JSN, 80% routes for 2 weeks in a row, right? And we have it where Jake Bobo just took the role of DK Metcalf on the outside. So Bobo is a handcuff for DK Metcalf. He's actually worth something. Did you see that catch? He had an amazing catch. Okay. JSN, still only 5 targets, I believe. 1 bad drop. Okay. But he had that wide open touchdown. I know with all the ESPN metrics, he's way down there. People are trying to crush him, right? And he looks kind of crushed. If you look at his demeanor, he's trying a little bit too hard. Everyone is trying to pump him up. Pete Carroll, DK Metcalf, he calls them the vets, right? And he calls the rookies the pups. So apparently there is this hierarchy there in Seattle. okay, they're giving the pups a chance to be starters, and they are being starters. They're just like, it's like they do tight end there in Seattle, by committee. They might do a wide receiver by committee, but they drafted this guy in the first round. They're going to give him a shot. So I do think JSN is someone that you have to be excited about. I think that his role can grow even more. He's going to earn more targets as he becomes more confident as the every week goes by.
No, I think the other thing to keep in mind, this isn't just fantasy, but like just real life. Like a lot of times we say, and this is true of football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. A lot of times you will see a player drafted high, or you will see a player sign a big money contract, and then if they're underperforming, I think to the naked eye, we just assume, oh, this guy got his money, now he's just going through the motions. I think a lot of times is when you get that money, or when you get that drafted that high, you want to show to everybody that you are worth that pick, you are worth that money. And sometimes I think that creates pressing. And if you start pressing, you start overdoing things and trying too hard instead of letting your natural ability and just muscle memory take over. And that might be what's going on a little bit with Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's getting the chances. I'm with you. I think he gets more chances as the season goes on. Interesting thing about Bobo, we'll credit Ben Gretsch for that. Fantastic stuff. And I think that's something that a name that we need to be paying attention to on the waiver wire for this week at a minimum. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'm still a believer in. Quentin Johnston, different story here, Ray. I know you drafted him in a bunch of leagues. I drafted him in a few, and I'm kind of at a loss. I thought he would be better than this, especially with the Mike Williams injury. What's wrong with him in your eyes?
He might just be a bust. Like, I hate to really just say it. Like you can see my ownership percentages, right? And I had JSN, maybe he was my top guy for sure, like at over 60%. But I had Johnston up there over 40%, and I started dropping him last week. Mm-hmm. I was like, if he goes off, he goes off. But this guy's not even earning targets. Right. They're not even looking for him, right? Okay, so Mike Williams is out. Josh Palmer is the next guy up. Okay, Josh Palmer's there. They want to get Johnston involved. After the bye, nothing's going on. Right. Last week he gets 2 targets, and everybody's like, okay, we see a little glimmer of hope. Well, you can give it one more week because they're playing Chicago. I think after this week, if he does nothing, you have to let him go.
We touched on this at the early part of the show. I'm trying to think who we were talking about. I think we were talking about the Browns running backs, right? It's weird to think about this from a fantasy standpoint when you consider where you drafted Johnston, where the Chargers drafted Johnston, and you think about dropping him in favor of a guy like Pierre Strong. Mm-hmm. But to your point, we've already seen one injury on the Chargers. You would think Johnston would step up. He hasn't. We are seeing multiple injuries with a lot of running backs, no different than any other year, Ray. Like Pierre Strong might be a better use of that roster spot when you're trying to make the championship round of the FFPC Main Event or the FantasyPros Championship than Quentin Johnston. Again, it's weird, but I think, we're coming into week 8 here, man. Like, we got to start thinking about shedding dead weight, and you've already done that with Johnston in several of your leagues.
I think so. Like you said, what is it? We only have a few games left in the regular season. This isn't best ball, right? We're not preseason anymore. Wherever you drafted the guy, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's how they perform on your roster. You have only a few decisions to make. You either put him in your starting lineup or you leave him on the bench. You either drop him or you keep him there. And you don't feel confident starting him. What are you going to keep him there for? Yeah. He's not even earning targets. That's the thing. His own team doesn't think that much of him. His own quarterback is not really looking for him that much, right?
And Keenan Allen is such a target hog. And what did we see from Palmer this past week? 130 some receiving yards, 5 catch. I mean, and what did Johnston get? Maybe 1 catch. He either got 1 catch or 1 target. I can't remember which. Maybe it was both, 1 catch and 1 target. But it wasn't good. So I think we can do better than Quentin Johnston. I'll tell you another player that I didn't draft him this past drafting season. I didn't get Jahan Dotson on a ton of teams, not because I wasn't a believer in what he could do, Ray, but and you saw this too because you drafted a bunch of teams. that guy kept going higher and higher and higher. Like as we got, I mean, like at the end of drafting season in early September, I mean, I feel like the guy was going in like the 5th round or something insane like that on a team that already had Terry McLaurin and Sam Howell throwing to him. He went against a bad Giants defense this past week. 5 catches, 43 yards. Now, I know that there are people out there that will tell you that Howell it's been Howell's fault. Like Dotson has been in the right situation. He's been in the right spot. Howell couldn't get him the ball. Well, that may be the case, but we have to care about that as fantasy owners, right? We have to care about not only how good the receiver is, how good the quarterback is throwing to him. Dotson is a guy that outside of maybe 1 week has been extraordinarily frustrating to start. Is he still worth rostering at this point? Are we putting him at that Quentin Johnston level, or is he not quite there yet?
He was at that Quentin Johnston level last week when he drew, I believe, 0 targets. I put him in, I believe, above, like, let's say Josh Downs, something like that, and he does nothing, right? I'm thinking, do I drop this guy? And I have co-managers on some of these teams. They definitely wanted to drop him since maybe week 3. They're frustrated with this guy. And I said, no, let's keep him on because McLaurin is hurt and we have the roster spot for him for now. He comes back with this game. I think we can be kind of encouraged because we look at it, right? It's going to be McLaurin. He's the clear alpha. And then you have who people thought was maybe the wide receiver 2 in Curtis Samuel. Every year he does this. Curtis Samuel is a very steady guy, but we have seen his ceiling, I believe. Dotson, we don't really know what that ceiling is, and he makes these amazing grabs sometimes, especially that one in preseason. I think we can have a little bit more patience, given that he showed us what he can, at least draw 8 targets, which is very tied for second on his own team. Mm-hmm. That team is only McLaurin, Samuel, Dotson, and Logan Thomas, besides the running backs, right?
Yeah.
They're not even running the ball that well anymore. I think they're losing confidence in Brian Robinson. They're starting that other kid, Chris Rodriguez, I believe. Mm-hmm. He's getting touches in every quarter now, right? And they still have Antonio Gibson. I think they're going to throw the ball, especially this week against the Eagles, I believe.
Yeah.
They're going to, presumably they'll be coming from behind, right? There's going to be some garbage time yards. If you're desperate, I wouldn't mind flexing out some of those guys, those 4 guys that I mentioned.
The game against the Eagles is in DC. Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in that game. So yeah, you would think that Sam Howell will be chucking the ball at least at the end of the 4th quarter, and maybe stuff happens for Dotson in that game. So we'll see on that. You're encouraged. I think like it would have been an absolute disaster if Dotson would have come up with like a 2 for 11 yards, something like that. 5 for 43 at least is somewhat palatable. Again, I know it's a bad defense, but excuse me, quite frankly, the Giants showed up defensively that game, and Dotson still churned that out. So there is something there yet.
Especially that last play of the game. They went to Dotson, right? The pass was thrown a little bit behind him. He couldn't hang on to it. He was so distraught, but they're looking for him.
Right.
You want to see that. And I think they'll go back to him because, Howell can throw it 50 times a game.
Right. And what game was it, Ray? It was a couple of weeks ago. Was that the Eagles where I think it was the Eagles where the Commanders tied it up on the last play of regulation, setting into overtime, and the Eagles ended up winning. But that was a touchdown to Dotson. That's who they were looking for with the game on the line. So there is something to be said for that as well. Shifting to tight ends here. I was, when Devontae Adams was battling this shoulder issue and we were kind of seeing Michael Mayer worked into the game plan early on in consecutive games, quite frankly, both against the Packers and against Chicago this past week. He didn't end up with big stat lines. And I think that the opportunity has been there for Mayer. I shouldn't say that. I think the opportunity has been there for the Raiders to get Mayer involved, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. Are we going to have to wait until 2024 to see any kind of impact on this guy? And I think I'll frame this by saying, like, if you have the opportunity to get a backup or a third string running back, even in the FFPC tight end premium, would you be willing to drop Michael Mayer to make it happen with one of these running backs?
I would not, because he, like we said, preseason, we don't know what these guys can bring. We don't know what the game plan is with these teams. Not this past week, because I believe Devontae Adams had his squeaky wheel treatment, and Jacoby Myers is just, he always gets targets, right? I think the previous 2 weeks, we've seen what Mayer can do. They've been trying to get him involved. Okay. Jacobs actually made a really nice catch last week. Okay. So they're using him in the pass game as well. But I believe they want to concentrate it around those 4 guys. When I was drafting, it was a dumb move that I didn't get a little bit of exposure to Devontae Adams. But I thought it might be because they brought in Myers and Mayer with the first-round draft pick, right? And back then, Jacobs was holding out. Okay. Right. So we take these shots on these guys. Everyone dropped Mayer, I believe, because he did nothing. He did nothing for like the past, the first month or so. And you get discouraged. You just drop him for the next hot guy. Now we've seen something out of him, right? He's also someone who might be trying a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
But we saw 2 out of the last 3 weeks. He's shown promise. I would definitely try to keep him. And you might be able to use him this year.
These rookies are funny, and like we've talked a lot of rookies on the show tonight, like Smith and Jigba, Johnston, and now Mayer. I always feel like a lot of times they get pushed up because they are the mystery box, they are the unknown. We don't know what their upside is, and I think high stakes players will push them up the boards to try to cash in on the unknown, right? But more often than not, and you know this, Ray, I mean the rookies don't always hit their rookie year. And sometimes they get dropped, but then I feel like that second half of the season, we talk about a rookie wall in the NBA, especially. Oh, he's hit the rookie wall. I think like it's the opposite is true in the NFL. I think the opposite normally happens when you have a rookie that once he gets his feet wet, once he gets going, Rasul Douglas was just saying this the other day, the cornerback for the Packers was saying, 5-6 games, that's enough. You're not a rookie anymore. You're not young anymore. And I think that could be the case with a lot of these guys. Smith and Jigba, Michael Mayer. We're already seeing it with Jordan Addison, right? Obviously with the no Justin Jefferson in the lineup. We're seeing Zay Flowers has been great all season. But we're seeing these surges now, and I think we're going to see a surge in these rookies too. I think you could make the case that Musgrave, if he can stay on the field, is in for a big second half as well. Mayer Laporta is obviously already having it. And Dalton Kincaid, 8 for 85 this week. He could be another guy that's really coming into his own in Buffalo too.
Eric, let's not forget, with these, we have so high expectations for these rookies now.
Yes.
We're so impatient. We have to think about this. We're looking at information. We're looking at all these things. Everybody's expecting, fast results, right? Diet plans, whatever. Some of these, back then, it used to be 4th-year breakout for wide receiver, 3rd-year breakout for wide receiver. We're expecting these rookie tight ends to pick up the playbook, make all these blocks, and produce by week 8. I'm not sure about that. Whatever he's producing, these guys are already doing really well. Some of these guys are already doing really well. So have a little bit more patience, I would say.
I think you're right, too. And then the other thing, too, Ray, and you play Dynasty, so you'll get this. Like, we have the rookie fever, right? After all those Dynasty rookie drafts are over with, like, we're drafting our redraft teams, and, like, we bump these rookies up higher. And it's just, like, we can't help ourselves, right? And it doesn't always work out that way, but you make a good point that I know you can't always practice patience with everybody, but for sure some of these rookie tight ends and some of these rookie receivers we talked about, patience, if you can make it happen. The waiver wire in the FFPC and the KFFSC will run tomorrow evening, Ray. I don't know if you've taken a look at it. Who are some of your targets going to be to pick up on your squad for the bye-less Week 8?
Thursday night game is Tampa Bay, and who are they playing? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Tampa and Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah, Tampa and Buffalo. So Buffalo had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And I saw that Godwin has a questionable tag with a neck injury, I believe. I'm not sure if he practiced. But
I'm gonna look that up right now.
Okay. But I would say Trey Palmer. Definitely someone you can take a peek at. That last week of the draft season, we always want to take a peek at these Chiefs wide receivers, right? We didn't know who it might be. Rashee Rice went a little bit higher, okay? But, Justin Ross or Richie James, all these guys, we would just take last round flyers on these guys because we didn't know. Trey Palmer is someone you can take a flyer on this week. If he does nothing, he shows nothing on Thursday, just drop him for someone else. I would say he's someone you want to look at for the first waiver run for really cheap.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, so the Godwin thing, I'm looking for the practice report today, but we have an estimation from yesterday, neck injury, DNP. Here we go. He is officially limited in practice today. So that's good that he's getting in a limited practice on Tuesday. I don't know what's I should know this, Ray. Maybe you don't even know. What is it? Just a walkthrough that they have tomorrow prior to the game? I can't believe that they're going to go through another practice tomorrow, right?
It might be a walkthrough. You're right.
Well, okay. So that might be the best we get. But to your point, like, you can figure this out on Thursday if you acquire Trey Palmer on Wednesday night. So that's the more you know. If you know, you know. So I like the Trey Palmer call. We talked a little bit about the Pierre Strong aspect early in the program as well. Let's get into to the final question here for you, Ray. A sleeper that, and I don't want to say a conventional sleeper, but a player that you don't think a lot of people in the FFPC are going to be starting in Week 8 that you think should be in there. And then a player that a lot of people just assume he's a must-start guy, but you're kind of like, slow your roll player. Maybe you should not be starting this player in Week 8. Do you have a couple of those players for us?
The first question was, who do I think might be a start? I was looking at it. On Tuesdays, I always look at my rosters just to see what I need, right? It's you have only a few days to process all this information that we get on Sunday and Monday. So on Tuesday, I try to see who I might start, who I feel comfortable with. That last 2 flex spots in FFPC, I was looking at it. I think one team, I have JSN, I have Zach Moss, and I have Chuba Hubbard. Okay, so I believe over the bye week, Carolina just had their bye week, and I think they changed the play caller on the offensive side of the ball, and I believe they're 0-6, right? They're 0-6, winless
correct.
on the season.
Yes.
And Hubbard had a very good game. He had like 19 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown on the week before the bye when Miles Sanders was hurt. Now they're saying, okay, we always get this coach speak. Miles Sanders is our guy. We're going to go back to him. Whenever you hear that, it's definitely like, at least for me, it's always like, okay, they're trying to pump the guy up, or we don't know what's going on, but it's like, okay, let's not forget we still have this guy on our roster. But Hubbard, I think, showed enough that he might be the lead back now, with Miles Sanders being the change of pace. So I would say out of those 3, at least, trying to give some context to it, I would start Hubbard over Moss and JSN.
I'm trying to find it here for what Hubbard did. This was against the Dolphins in Week 6, the last time Carolina played. And Hubbard, you're spot on, 19 for 88 on the ground. He also had a touchdown. He had 1 target. He caught it for 2 yards. I don't know if pass catching is going to figure into this at all. The thing is that, like, Bryce Young, all that guy does is look for Adam Thielen out there. Like, right. That's it's so tough to find a second pass catcher for Carolina. But yeah, I mean, I think the Hubbard call is interesting, and it's definitely something that not a lot of people will be doing. A lot of people will have Miles Sanders on their roster and be able to, just, I'll check the box. I'll move him to starting because he's back. He's playing. Not necessarily a great start. Great call there, Ray. We shall see on how it turns out. What about a player that you are I guess Miles Sanders could qualify as this. As a player, maybe you don't want to start him in Week 8. What about another player that you're a little bit nervous about this weekend?
I'm nervous about Miami going. I'm not sure if it's at New England, but they're definitely playing New England, right? And Tua had only he had his most underwhelming game all year.
It's in Miami. Okay. That game is, yeah. But
I'm getting pretty bad vibes there. I think the Patriots might have figured out something. That kid Pop Douglas, the Mario Douglas. You were talking about deep league waiver wire ads. I think we definitely have to look at him.
Yes.
70% routes or something. They're definitely looking for a weapon outside with Bourne, right? But Belichick, one of the best minds of the game. Last week we had that breaking news, right? That he had some kind of extension over the summer that we only found out about just now. And it's like, okay, maybe Belichick is washed. Like maybe he has this thing with Kraft that he doesn't want him in there anymore. But he's still one of the best coaches around. He's like, I think he's going to figure out a game plan to maybe eliminate the best option, which is Tyreek Hill, or at least try to disrupt that. Okay, so then, I know Miami has tons of options. You have a great run game with Mostert there. Mm-hmm. And then you still have Jalen Waddle. He hasn't been that great this year. He's been kind of underwhelming. And
I think part of it has been that running game has been better than a lot of us expected. And as a result, somebody had to underwhelm, and I wouldn't say Waddle's been like underwhelming, like he's still producing, but I think where people took him in drafts, you were hoping for more for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I think that game is going to be closer than we expect. I think the Patriots are trying to just, win it with the running game and ball control. So I would definitely look at your Dolphins. You're not going to sit Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to sit Waddle. But on some teams where I have like Tua and who did you say Seattle was playing? They're playing Cleveland. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's no way I'm starting Geno Smith over Tua. But Tua, I've seen he's ranked like 5th or 6th in the ECR on Fantasy Pros. I'm not sure he should be ranked that high. I personally am a little bit worried about that game.
And when we look at other players that other quarterbacks that you could have on your roster, besides Tunga Bailoa, I mean Jared Goff, that's a guy that you could easily have both Goff and Tunga Bailoa. That might be a tough call. CJ Stroud is coming off the bye. I mean, you're looking at him playing against the only team without a win in the NFL in Carolina. That's another guy that you'd consider there. Brock Purdy. I know Purdy didn't look all that great last night against Cincinnati, but those are all players that you could have on your roster with Tunga Bailoa, and you might want to take a hard look at that and make sure that if Tunga Bailoa is your guy, you want to feel good about it. And I know you don't feel great about it right now, so that's something that we'll be paying attention. It's Tuesday, Ray. I mean, it's so difficult to make any wide sweeping generalizations about Week 8, but you have done yeoman's work here tonight. Fantastic stuff. Got me thinking on a lot of things too, which I always appreciate. We will continue to follow you on the X at Chung Knows, and we will continue to probably see you near the top of the leaderboards in the main event and the Fantasy Pros Championship. I hope the ball bounces your way this week. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I always enjoy talking ball with you. Be good, and we'll talk with you again real soon.
Thanks a lot, Balky. I'll see you soon, all right?
You got it. That's Ray Chung, ladies and gentlemen. 17-time FFPC League winner. Follow him on the X at Chung Knows. That will complete this week's RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. I want to thank Ray Chung. I want to thank the FFPC, everybody who makes this program possible. We will return again next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. High-Stakes Fantasy Football Show will be live on this channel, 7 o'clock Eastern until 9 o'clock on Thursday night, taking you right into that Buccaneers-Bills game on the Better Sports Network. It'll be myself and Fantasy Football Today's Doug Orth for the full 2 hours. Doug's a great guy. Always great time talking fantasy football with him as well. And then Friday night, High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time with myself and the KFFSC Commissioner Farrell Elliott. We're going to be talking with Brad Witten, the guy who is in 4th place in the FFPC main event heading into Week 7. I haven't checked to see where he is. I should have checked before the show tonight, but I forgot. But he was in 4th place heading into Week 7. He's still near the top of the leaderboard in that chase for a $1 million grand prize. If you do want to keep playing fantasy football, go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com, play in the FFPC Weekly Challenge. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. Just choose the 10 players you want if you want to play without kickers and defenses, or 12 players if you want to play the classic style with kickers and defenses. Only 1 player per team. You can have anybody you want, but you can't stack. Just pick them, make sure they're locked in before 1 p.m. on Sunday, and then enjoy the rest of the weekend. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment, share, and get notified anytime we go live, which, again, will be Thursday night at 7 and Friday night at 10, and then back again Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really appreciate you hanging out with us on this Tuesday night. And I also appreciate that a lot of you are already working on start sits and waivers already and placing your fab bids. So make sure that you're getting that done. Thanks for taking a break from it to watch the show tonight. Thanks to Ray Chung, and thanks to all of you. Thank you so much for watching. We will do this again on Tuesday. Appreciate you all, everybody, and may the ball bounce your way in Week 8.